Laura Dickinson is a professor here at the University of Connecticut School of Law. Her forthcoming book, Outsourcing War and Peace, discusses something that's been in the headlines recently. There are nearly as many private contractors as there are soldiers in Iraq. Why is that the case? What does it mean? That's what we'll discuss for the next little bit. Thanks for making some time for us.
Thank you for having me. And I should say, actually, by some estimates, there are now more contractors than troops in Iraq. Recent estimates suggest there are about 180,000 contractors to 160,000 troops.
Yeah, the estimates I've seen range from about 100,000. I hadn't seen 180. So why are there so many, and what are they doing over there?
Well, that's a big question and something that I've been looking into in my research. I think there are a lot of reasons why that's happened. One has to do with the whole rhetoric and ideology of privatization, which is, I think, responsible for a lot of outsourcing that we've seen in domestic governmental agencies. And we've had a big public debate about that. Should we privatize healthcare? Should we privatize prisons? But the reasons for privatizing have spilled over into the foreign policy apparatus. And in the late 90s, Secretary of Defense Cohen initiated this major privatization push in the military in order to cut costs. With our involvement in Iraq and limitations on the number of troops we can put on the ground, the military has turned to private contractors to provide the support they need to get the job done in Iraq and around the world.
And what exactly are they doing? Because it's the armed Blackwater contractors that have got the most publicity. But that 100,000 or 180,000, only a small fraction of them are doing that type of work, right?
That's right. Again, it's hard to get firm numbers, but about 30,000 are security contractors with the authority to use force, carrying weapons, and defending diplomats, sites, and so forth, like the Blackwater contractors. The rest of them are providing meals for troops. They're building bases, carrying in latrines. They're providing all sorts of support for troops, helping to man weapon systems. And then finally, there's another category of contractors who are authorized to use force, and that is interrogators. And we saw that unfortunately, in the Abu Ghraib scandal, that many contractors were implicated in the abuses committed at Abu Ghraib.
Why is it different this time? There have always been civilians in war zones doing various jobs. What are they doing that they weren't doing before? What is the difference in how it shows itself on the ground?
Yeah, well, I mean, going back in history, we've seen the use of private contractors, mercenaries in many, many settings. But, in the 20th century, when we built up a big bureaucratic state and we had big standing armies, we didn't use contractors as much. And if you just even go to Vietnam, the Vietnam War, we had 9,000 contractors there at the height of the buildup, about 550,000 troops. So it was a much different kind of war. Even in the first Gulf War, we had a ratio of about 1 contractor to 100 troops. And so what's different now is the scale. Yeah. We've got more contractors than troops on the ground, and also what they're doing. They are not only providing ancillary support services, but they're actually defending bases. And in some settings, that looks a lot like what troops do. It's come very close to what troops are doing.
The main combat missions they're doing is protecting diplomats, right?
And sites. So, for example...
Well, how many sites? Isn't it just a handful?
Well, it's not clear. But, for example, in Najaf, there was a situation where there was an uprising outside a base. It was actually a CPA site. And there were Blackwater security guards there, and there was 1 Marine there. And they engaged in a firefight for hours with the Iraqis who were outside that site. And, by some accounts, the Blackwater security guards were essentially giving orders to the Marine. They were, in fact, more experienced, more senior than this young Marine there, and he was looking to them for guidance. And so you see the situation where the Blackwater troops, the Blackwater commandos looked like they were almost in authority position. So what they're doing in some cases looks very, very close to what troops are doing.
I guess it was about a month ago, September 16th. According to the Iraqi government, it's 17 unarmed Iraqi civilians who were killed by